Hey guys! So today we are going to talk about object-oriented programming and programming trends. So let's get into it. So this is going to be funny. Now, I might be 100% wrong about this. I might be so wrong that you have no idea how wrong I could be about this. So let's just open with that. So I've had the opportunity to tell you that I might be wrong. Cool. Now, let's talk about web components. What do you mean, Fredrik? I thought we were going to talk about object-oriented programming. Yes, just relax. We will talk about object-oriented programming. But mostly we will talk about programming trends. So, you may not be aware of this, or you may be painfully aware of how popular functional programming is today. And functional programming has gotten to the point right now where it's actually a selling point, which I think is I think it's hilarious. Honest to God, I think it's hilarious that some libraries and some presenters, especially on Tech Talks, they will actually use functional programming as a selling point or a bargaining chip or something of that nature to advocate either a language, a library, a work practice, whatever. It's always gotten to the point, it basically has. It has gotten to the point where functional programming, or the trend of functional programming, has been associated with better software. How dumb is that? It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Well, not the dumbest thing I've ever heard, but it's up there. At least in IT. What in the world makes you believe that functional programming will give you better software? Because you can you can mess up software in any programming practice. Doesn't matter which one you pick, you can mess it up. Trust me. So, with that said, what does this have to do with web components? Well, let's talk about web components. You see, I believe firmly that this trend of web frameworks, JavaScript frameworks such as React, Angular, and Vue, and so forth, are as many trends going to start dropping off in popularity. And I think it's going to happen fairly soon, because I see an emerging trend. And the emerging trend I see is that the browsers are now getting support for basically doing all the things, the underlying things, that we as developers, at least working for the web developers, the things that we want to do are getting to, we are getting native support for it, or at least the platform, the browser itself is getting that support. And I'm talking about service workers, I'm talking about CSS Grid, talking about these sort of things. And apart from a few minor issues here and there that still are being solved in a very nice manner by these frameworks, we are very close to a point where I think that people are going to start this trend, because that's the way trends work, right? They go it's a wave. They go up, they go down, and we've been up for a very long time now, React leading the charge with Angular and Vue in tow, and I think it's going to start to drop off. And I think that the next hype in web programming is going to be web components. I am fairly certain that that's going to happen. And what I think is beautiful about that, in other words, what I'm basically telling you, and I'm sticking my neck out now, I am fully aware of this. My guess is that frameworks such as Polymer is going to get a lift very, very soon. And when that happens, we will have gone full circle. Why is that? Well, my friend, because web components, as promoted by Google, and basically the way that it's implemented in, say, Polymer, it doesn't have to be Polymer, but I'll just talk about Polymer for now, is very much an object-oriented thing, just as React components is. And my guess is, and I think this is so funny, my guess is that what's going to happen after we move over to this component system, the web components, what's going to happen then is that people are going to go full circle back again, and we are going to be in this situation where we're in this in-between hype, where the object-oriented people are going to start trying to push object-oriented programming. So now that's going to get a popularity lift, and the trend is going to switch back towards that way of working. And what that's going to make, what then happens, of course, is that the functional programmers and the functional library developers are going to have to figure out a way to stay relevant, and so they're going to add different reasons or retrofit different solutions for their library so that they will have a spot at the table now that the technology trends are moving in another direction. Which is it's basic. Think of it this way. That's what Java did. What did Java do in Java 8? Well, one of the big, there was a lot of changes, but the most object-oriented, or rather the language that is the most object-oriented language you can possibly imagine. It is associated with object-oriented programming to the point where it's taught as the language for object-oriented programming in our schools, went functional, or at least they tried. They did it in a Java way. They tried to be functional in a Java way, and to me it didn't really work. I think that Kotlin is much closer to a functional approach on things, and Scala of course, but anywho, they tried, and you can be damn sure that they tried, not because it made sense for Java as a language, it's because it was a trend. That's my guess. And that's exactly what I foresee is going to happen next. That's why I think object-oriented programming is coming back. It's a little bit away as of now. It's not going to happen next month or anything like that, but I think it's going to come back. And I think that we are going to go back to having what we've always had. Regardless of the trends, regardless of all of these things, we're going to have some people that religiously defend functional programming, and then we have some people who religiously defend object-oriented programming, and bloggers and yada, who fight about single quotes over double quotes and all that good stuff. And then we will have the people that I respect, the people I want to work with, the sort of people who taught me the most valuable lesson. And I'm not going to mention any names, but his name starts with M. He once made me realize, this was a long time ago now, that as I said, you can fuck up code in any practice. Bad code, if you do object-oriented programming bad, it is that's the reason. Bad object-oriented programming is the reason why you have tech talk speakers who advocate functional programming. They use bad object-oriented programming as a way to give weight to their arguments for functional programming, just as people who are against functional programming uses complicated, nested, composed function structures or monads or whatever as an argument for their viewpoint. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to you. And this is what I feel is probably the way that things always kind of end up anyway. So I don't see why people spend so much time arguing about one practice over another practice. I really don't. Because at the end of the day, I've never worked in a project that was strictly functional or strictly object-oriented. There's always elements. There's always a case-by-case type of thing going on where some solutions have a functional feel, some have an object-oriented feel, and that's what I think is going to happen with web components and so forth. I'm pretty sure that since they are inherently very object-oriented in the feel to them, that's going to be the trend, and then we're going to use functional aspects on a case-by-case basis. And so, where does this leave you? Well, my friend, this leaves you in the same position that I am. You have to figure things out. And all I can tell you is what I realized. It doesn't matter which practice you use. You look at the situation and you use your experience to look at the current state of things, and then you ask yourself, all right, for this given situation, which approach fits the best? And then you go with that. Doesn't matter if it's functional, object-oriented, or declarative, whatever, or procedural, call it whatever you want. Use your experience to determine which is the best fit.